Lucas. And not sure if you can hear people talking in the background, but I heard some exasperated calls coming from the control room. Hope everything's okay. Hope you guys can see me. Just like always, we're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter with Periscope, and we're live on YouTube as well. And I'm going to be checking comments on those platforms, so go ahead and enter your comments into those places, and we will get those questions answered. Today's show is all about lower thirds, where to find lower thirds, how to use them, how to edit them, how to animate them, places where you might want to use them, just all the feelings that I have about lower thirds. So that's what today's show is. So we will be back in just a second for all about lower thirds today on ScreenFlow Live. Alright everybody, welcome back. The first thing I want to say is don't forget to put your comments and your questions into the chat. My experience with ScreenFlow Live is so much more fun when I know you guys are asking me questions. It allows me to continue giving you good content because I don't always think about the things that you guys are thinking about out there when you're using ScreenFlow. So please don't be hesitant to put your comments into the comment zone. But before we start, I just want to let you know you can follow us on all these different platforms. On Twitter, you can find us at ScreenFlow. On Facebook, facebook.com/ScreenFlow. And then on YouTube, our channel is called ScreenFlowTube. You can find us all there. We do go live every 2 weeks at Wednesday at 2:30. And if you want to, I think right here, if I see my confidence monitor, boom, there it comes, telestream.net/ScreenFlowLive. You can sign up there for an email. We'll send you an email just letting you know, hey, we're going live today at 2:30, so you never miss another ScreenFlow Live. We will be here next Wednesday, which it looks like we're not next Wednesday, but next other Wednesday, which looks like it's going to be November 1st. Yeah, because the next Wednesday is the 25th, and then November 1st we will be here. I haven't decided the topic yet for that. 2 weeks in advance is sometimes hard for me to think about. But I will come up with the topic soon, and we'll be doing it then. But for now, let's get into lower thirds. Actually, let me just double check no one said anything in the comment section. Not on Facebook and not on YouTube, so let's do it. Lower thirds. What are lower thirds? First of all, let me show you a lower third that I've created in the past for ScreenFlow. Boom, there it is. Lower third. That doesn't really look like anything until maybe we bring it down and we put it in the lower third of our screen and then come over and add a text box to it. Lucas, let's change the color to something like dark blue looks good, and pull it down. And then if I were to, let's say this is my face instead of some random dude, pull it underneath, and there you go. I've got a video of myself with a lower third that says Lucas as my name. So that's what a lower third is. But there's so many ways to create them. There's so many things that we can do with them. And that's what today's show is about, is just how to effectively use lower thirds when you're creating your projects in ScreenFlow, and little tricks to make your lower thirds even better. So I would say the most basic way to make a lower third in ScreenFlow would be to create an annotation. So I'm going to come up here to the annotations box, and I'm going to create a new one. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Oops. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the box option. We have arrow, line, box, empty square, and empty circle. I'm just going to choose the full square, and I'm going to go like that. And now I just have a blue box, and I can bring that down to the bottom corner. And then if I come over to the text area, I'll type in Lucas B. That's my name. Looks like that could probably be a little bit smaller, so we'll change the font size to 72. put that in the middle. Well, next thing I like to do is highlight all of my clips, right click them and say nest clips. Now I have one thing that's, I can call this, rename it here, lower third. And now I just in seconds created a very basic lower third. You know what I am going to do really fast? Because who doesn't like to, oh, I pressed the wrong button. Hang on. Stop that recording, discard. Let's configure my recording real fast here. And we want to record from my HD camera. Is that going to work? If anybody has one of these new MacBook Pros, the ones with the touch bar, I have so many issues with my FaceTime camera. I can't even, it's not even pulling up. It won't activate at the moment. So I'm not going to be able to do that, but I was just going to get a picture of my face in the screen there, but doesn't matter. We can use some of my time-tested walk footage. So there you go. I have this lower third in the bottom left corner. Of course, you're going to want to maybe highlight it, add starting and ending transitions so that it fades in, stays there for a little bit, and fades out. And that's your lower third. The most basic, one simple color, a little bit of text showing you something cool. And that's not a lot of fun. It is functional. You can also, you know, maybe animate it a little bit by putting a video action and have it, you know, start at the top and actually let's have it start at the bottom. Let's start at the top and drop down to the bottom like this. Boom, comes into play like that. Any sort of animations will give it just a little bit of depth. But it's really boring. It doesn't look super awesome. And one of the places that I routinely get stuck is, okay, I know that I want this lower third, and I know that I want it to look really cool, but my strength is not necessarily in the audio or the visual design of elements in an editing project. So I make something like this, and I'm like, well, what am I going to even do next? The next thing you do, go to the internet, open up Google, and type in lower third PNG. And this is something that a viewer said just recently. If you type PNG in the search term, maybe even .png, it will give you transparent background images in your Google search. So now I can come here, and any of these that have like a background image, when you click and open them up, you see this checkered pattern. I think that'll come through on the live broadcast. That means when you bring this into ScreenFlow, you won't have a rectangle image. You'll just have that lower third, and any place where you see checkers, like even behind this faded green, that's going to shine all the way through. So what I can do is view this individual image, right-click it, save it. I have a folder already. Save into my desktop. Come back in here and add a new file, and then bring that in. And we'll get rid of this one that I made earlier. Fold this over, make it a little bit smaller, and now check this out. I just found somebody else's lower third, and with that I can once again add a text box that says Lucas, and click and drag that in, and I now have a lower third. Now this one that I chose isn't particularly nicer than the one that I made before, but we can change that. I have a whole bunch that I found here, ones that I thought were really cool, and we can pull them in and use them. So let's try, oh, that one didn't download as I thought it did. Oh well, maybe we can try and recreate that one. Let's do something like this. There you go. I like this one. I'm just going to get rid of this background because it looks really nice just to have this floating on top. Now we have an issue here because I downloaded this lower third, your text or name and your description. I downloaded it as an individual image, and as a result I can't change the text here, so we have to do some creative editing. So what I'm going to do, bear with me here because this might get a little confusing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two boxes that look similar to the ones here, two different colors, and I'm going to lay them on top of the current rendition of this lower third, and then on top of those two boxes I'm going to put my text back in. So watch what happens here. The first thing I'm going to do is create a lower third, but I'm going to change the color of it. So there's my lower third right here, and I'm going to highlight over this box here. Maybe, you know what I'm actually going to do is make it just a little bit smaller than the box, so that when I see it, it just covers up the text on here, but doesn't actually take up the whole box. So there you go. You can see now that I just have this blue box floating on top. Now what I want to do is change the color, and I can use this little dropper here to choose the exact color as the background. So now look what just happened there. When I pull this over to the front, you can't tell the difference. I'm trying to look really hard at my computer screen, but no, I can't tell the difference. And now I got rid of that text. And now I'm going to do the same. Well, first I'm going to make it the same length as my lower third. And now I'm going to do the same thing again. But this time I'm going to do it on the text right below. And once I'm done with that, again, I can click on it, change the color. There we go. Use the eyedropper to choose the color of the background, and boom. Essentially what I've done is I've just created a proxy of that background to put on top of the text. So now we have the ability to come in here and add two new text boxes. Come up to my text zone. The first one will be Lucas Bischofberger, if I can spell my own name correctly. Let's change the size of that. And actually, you know what was really cool? I liked that it was all capital letters. So I'm going to do that. And change the size down to 72. That looks a little big still. 64 seems about right. Zoom in here. If I'm pressing and holding, see how I have all those snapping lines? Just a quick one here. If I press Command, I can now free float move this around. The snapping lines will toggle off for the time being. And there we go. We got Lucas Bischofberger. So we'll start that all the way over here. Make it as long as everything else. Make another text box. This time we're going to say all about lower thirds. But that's going to be way too big, so let's drop that even down to 36, see how that works. And there you go. I just took this lower third. Wait, let me finish it. Let me make everything correctly the same length. Highlight all of it. Nest those clips. Crop this down using Control. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I now have a nice little lower third that I got off the internet that had the wrong text, but I was able to just manipulate it a little bit to turn it from this into that. So that's one way of going on online, finding some of these interesting lower thirds. You're like, hey, that one catches my eye, I like it, but there's already all the text in it. Now you can just come over. Of course, it's not going to work with everything. Like right here, this one in particular would be very difficult. Hang on a second. This one would be very difficult because you have this gradient on the right-hand side. I personally don't think this one looks very good, but you have this gradient, so you can't necessarily fake it like we just did with that other one. The nice thing about this one is that it has consistent colors all the way through. So there you go. I've created a nested clip. Let me just check the comments real fast, see if you guys are still going on. Ethan B says hello. Hello, Ethan. And no other comments. You guys are real quiet today. All right, so another thing that I wanted to show you is what happens if you find a... See, I'm going to try and explain this in a quick way, but what happens if you find something like this and you can't find the transparent version of it? Or is this transparent? Let's see. Pull this in, drop it below, No, it's not. And I can tell because I can't see the video behind. If I were to crop this, I will suddenly see. Oh, I just cropped the wrong thing. There we go. So how do I get this one, right? Because I really like what this looks like, but I don't have a transparency of it. So this is where you have to start, okay, how can I break down this lower third that I think looks really cool? How can I break this down into as many parts as I can see? And so I'm going to tell you my thought process, how I would go about recreating this specific one in ScreenFlow. So what I see here are 3, potentially 4 depending on how you look at it, but I see 3 text boxes. We've got title goes here, that's one piece of text. Subtitle goes here, that's another text box, and drop logo here. But I think that's actually going to be an image in this case. So we're going to say 2 text boxes and an image. But we also have multiple pieces of white boxes, right? So we've got this long one in the back. On top of that, we have this rectangular, squarish looking one here. But we also have a third one, which is harder to see because there's no transparency, but there's going to be a black band that goes here as well. So now it's time to try and recreate this look in ScreenFlow. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the elements of this lower third. And annotations is really where the bulk of this kind of stuff happens. So I'm going to create an annotation clip. I'm going to use a full box, and I'm just going to go over and I'm going to, oops, press the wrong button. Didn't get precise enough. Let's start on this side. I'm going to come here and I'm just going to overlay a box that looks more or less about the same size. All right, and then we can zoom in here and make sure everything is nice and perfectly lined up. How does this look? Good. I like this side. We can come over here and that's looking good. And we'll zoom out. Perfect. So now what I want to do is create this one. And obviously I'm going to make this white later, but now I want to make this square, but I want it to be on top. So I'm going to create another annotation clip. We're going to pull it over to meet the same spot, and we're going to come in, zoom in, and we're going to do the same thing on top of this white box. There we go. I like that. Now we have one last one, and that's the subtitle goes here, and it looks like it even ends right there. So let's create one more annotation clip, bring it over, and now we're going to fake this one real fast. And sorry if my head looks weird, I'm just trying to zoom in real close here. And I think it looks about like that. So obviously this looks really funky. But what we need to do now, I'm going to make these all about 5 seconds. That seems to be a good length to work with in the ScreenFlow timeline. Pull it over. And what I'm going to do is change the color of the main box here. Of course, we want that to be white. And if we pull all of our sliders over to the left, we get white. And this one as well, we want to be white. Which one is it? That one. We also want this to be white. So we will make it white. And this one, we want to be black. Color black. Now what I'm going to do in order for us to be able to see this, I'm going to change the background to just like a bright green, just because it'll allow us to see what's really going on. And we'll move this one up here. So we're trying to make this. Now the first thing I see when we're working with these two elements is this box here has an outline on it. So I've got a couple ways of doing that. I can highlight it, and I can add, will drop shadow do it? Let's see if a drop shadow does it. I want a 0 angle drop shadow. And black. And did that work? Offset. No, I don't think this is, that's not the way to do it. Sorry guys, trying to figure this out. I think the best way to do it really is to just create another. Oh, we can change the outline, of course. There we go. I want to change the color of it though. I want it to be. There we go. I want it to be kind of like a light gray, very soft, like it was almost like you can barely see it. See? Now you have kind of that very soft outline to it. And that looks really good. I like that a lot. And now all we have to do is I've essentially created that. But what I did see here, I wonder. No, that's not what I want to do. All right, so now all we have to do is get the text in here. So I need to make 2 text boxes. So let's create a text box. And this I want to be black because we're going to call it my name, Lucas Bischofberger. And we'll click and drag. That's not going to fit, so let's make it a little bit smaller. That looks a lot better. Right there. But you know, let's change the font. Adobe, that looks good, but let's make it all uppercase. And because we changed the font, we're going to have to change the size again. Perfect, right there. And now we're doing, you know, all about lower thirds. Let's create another one and say all about lower thirds. And I want it to be white this time because it's going over the black background. Let's make it 48 and then click and drag that here. And now drop logo here. Let's say here's my logo. Bring in ScreenFlow. Let's crop up the bottom a little bit. And then of course make it significantly smaller and drop it in here. I think make it a little smaller, give it a little bit of white space around the edge. Perfect. So now I've created this logo, this lower third that I saw. And so what I can do is make sure all of these pieces of media, once again, are nice and lined up, have the same duration of 5 seconds, and then I will highlight all of them and nest those clips. Double click on the name to lower third. And now I found this really cool looking lower third on the internet that I couldn't find the transparency of, this one here. And I recreated it just by easily breaking down the elements and making it in ScreenFlow. So now if we pull our shot back in and put that below here, we can get rid of this one. And now we have our awesome new lower third. Maybe I want to make that a little bit smaller too. There you go. All about lower thirds with Lucas Bischofberger. I just recreated the one that I liked. And you know, I'd probably tweak this. I don't like how much space there is on the left hand side. Whoa, pressed a funny button. I'd probably move this whole thing over. You know, maybe make this a little bit shorter. Actually, I think I might just do that. Let's crop it instead of change it. Oh, that was odd. I don't know what I really just did right there. But anyways, you can change the size of this if you want to. Move it in. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Right there. All about lower thirds. Come back to the timeline. Looks a little bit better. So if you find something online that you can use, go ahead and use it. If it's a transparency but it already has text, there's ways of getting around that to block out the text and then put text on top. Or of course you can just try and attempt to recreate the lower third that you saw just by breaking it down. Of course you're going to run into things that are sometimes difficult. If we go back to this, here's one. Let's say this one, view image. This doesn't look like a lower third. Save it, and let's bring it into ScreenFlow. I think this is actually a good one. I like this one. Huh. How tricky are we about to get here? Well, let's pull it into my media library real fast. And let's get rid of everything that we just made there because we don't need it. Let's change the background again back to white. Perfect. Okay, and let's bring this in. So we don't want that preview at the top. That looks weird. This is what we want to recreate. But one thing that you can't do in ScreenFlow, which is a limitation, I understand that, but is you can't really get this angle on your media. It's really tricky to do. There are some workarounds though. If you wanted to create something like this, what you could do is, gosh, I'm trying really hard to think about the best way to do this. And it's going to get really tricky. You know, we're going to come back to this one. There's something else I wanted to show you, and then we're going to save this for last because this is extremely complicated, what I want to do here. So let's hold off on this one, and we'll come back to it. So there's a couple other things I wanted to show you. Also, you can download videos, dude. This is like the most ridiculous thing in the world. You guys ready for this? I downloaded this video off of YouTube. Check it out. Lower thirds. Non-stop lower thirds. With a green background that can be chroma keyed out. All of these. Functional, easy to use, easy to find, ready to go. All you have to do is come into this video, come over to the video tab, add a video filter. In this case, we're going to add Chroma Key. And look at that. Now all of this, let's put this below, or on top, excuse me. We're going to come over and we're going to grab that video I've been using, or one of the videos I've been using. Drop it down on the bottom. Look at these lower thirds. And you can see they're fully transparent when those circles come up, when these things come in. And then you can put your text on top of them. There's a TV one. There's, you know, some news ones, all kinds of crazy. That one looks like it wasn't actually a transparency for some reason, but all of the rest of these are. And you can come in, you don't have to do anything. If you don't want to make your own, if you don't want to animate your own, all things that are relatively easy to do, you can find these. Just type in to YouTube, like YouTube lower thirds transparent. Don't do that, because that's not what I wanted. Let's just say YouTube. Hang on a second. Oh gosh. YouTube. Let's go to YouTube. And then we say lower thirds. Here we go. This is the one that I found right here. But anyone free green screen HD, like here's another one that you can use. All of these are cool, easy to use lower thirds. You just chroma key out the background. Look at these. There's a ton of them you can choose from. Great resource for you. And then I was thinking about, I saw, when it comes to style of lower thirds, let me check the comments. I forgot. Oops. Here we go. Killer free animated green screen lower thirds after watching your green screen training. Thanks. Yeah, Larry, I'm not sure when you said that, but like I said, there's really easy ones to find. ScreenFlow 7 is going to be awesome for me. Awesome, Ethan. Blech. Michael Lasser, still watching. Tend not to use lower thirds, so just watching for examples. Know the program well enough to know how to work with them, I think. Can always pick up the little things I did not know. You know, Michael, what it comes down to is that I use ScreenFlow all the time, but I am in no way the preeminent expert on video editing or maybe even all things ScreenFlow. But everybody does things slightly differently. And when you have people doing things in little tiny different ways, you can do exactly like you said, pick up on little things that are completely different. I'm going to show you something a little bit later, Michael, that you might not know. Real tricky stuff. But before we do that, I just want to finish up with a couple more things I wanted to show you. I saw this one, And I thought, damn, that looks really cool. Professional lower thirds. Look how easy it is to make that. Before I go into it, those of you watching, how would you make this? Let's forget about the waves in the background. That's just a stock photo. But this, if you were to try and, if you could pause me this live show and try and recreate this in ScreenFlow, how would you do it? It's very, very, very simple. There are 3 things going on with this lower third. There's a text box here. There's a text box here. That's 2 things. And there's a red annotation line. That is 3 things. Super simple. Watch how easy it is to recreate this. We're going to add an annotation. We're going to do a line. And we're going to start it here and come up there. Perfect, right? Then we're going to change the color. We're going to get more red about it. Boom. Perfect. Now we're going to add a text box that says professional. I can't even read that. And that's going to go over here. And then we're going to make another text box that says lower thirds. But we're going to make that italic and a little bit smaller. Right? And then move this up. And then what we're going to do is we are going to delete the background and put a random color behind it. Boom, there you go. I just created that in a half a second. Well, obviously it took longer than a half a second. But there you go, professional lower thirds. And using ScreenFlow, you can do some pretty cool stuff. Let's bring this over to the beginning. And now what I can do is, let's put these annotations on top. We'll figure out when we want to do that. Professional, I want this to start. I want to do a built-in animation as a typewriter, and I want it to take 1 second. Oh, and I want to fade the characters as well. So right when that ends, I want my little thing to come in, and we're going to add a starting transition for it. Make it a little bit less. See how this looks. I want less of a transition in, and I want it to start a little bit later. A little bit earlier. And then lower thirds comes in soon thereafter. Professional, lower thirds. I also want that to be a built-in animation of typewriters with faded in characters around 1 second long. Make that a little longer, I think. Boom. End it at 5 seconds or thereabouts. Nest my clips. And now we have a very simple, animated, easy to make, modern looking professional lower third. We can make this significantly smaller, bring it down to the bottom corner. You know? And that's just because I saw a cool picture on the internet and I was like, hey, that looks really cool. It looks really simple to replicate. And let's do it. It's easy. So my goal here is to show you guys that this stuff is real easy to do. Especially if you've been watching the show with me for a while. You've seen my experience with ScreenFlow and how one of the best ways to do is look at other things, learn how to recreate it in ScreenFlow, and when you've done that, you can then build off of it. It's not like you have no creativity and you're just looking at other things. You look at other people's stuff, you learn what they've done, figure out the elements of what they've created, and then morph that to reflect your creativity a little bit and create what you want to create, which is a lot of fun. I found this one. I thought this was pretty cool. This was just a whole bunch of really cool looking, it's a little bit, unfortunately, it says 4K, but it's clearly not in 4K. It's a little bit blurry, this one, but all of these are super easy to create. Right? We just did that. I mean, what about this one here? Derek Operator, Justin Simpson. This is 2 annotations, a little tiny logo, and 2 text boxes. That's all it is. This is a line with 3 dots on it, all using annotations in ScreenFlow, and then no box up there. You know, and all these things. Maybe this is a little graphic, but you could also make that in ScreenFlow. But all of these are good-looking lower thirds, 20 modern lower thirds, that are super simple in their design. They're just blocks of different colors laid on top of each other. Here's another one that I thought looked really good. Accelerate Pastors Conference. How would we make this one? This one is also super simple. Check this out. I'm going to make it real fast just to show you how easy it is. Come over to Annotations. This time I'm going to use Circle, and I'm going to create a circle. Actually, if I hold Shift, the nice thing about holding Shift in ScreenFlow, you can make a perfect circle. If you don't, you can get like oval kind of things when you're making these circles. Hold Shift. It locks into a place as a circle. I think the thickness is too much. I like a little bit more like that. And then let's change the color using this to this awesome kind of green. I like that. That looks good. And now we're going to move it down. And inside of it, we're going to create another annotation, this time a circle. Hold Shift and oops, move it in there, make it a little bit wider, up top as well, and on the bottom. And then what I'm actually going to do is switch these, because that way we get the outline from the green. We can change the thickness of this one to massively thick to pull it all together, and then change to that nice gray. How come that didn't work? Having trouble making this gray for some reason. Well, regardless, you make it gray, and then you make a line that goes out underneath it with another annotation using the line annotation. Start right there. If you hold Shift, you can only get a perfectly straight line. And then move it underneath the other ones, just like this. And then you just write your text on top, and you have that lower third, circles, whatever it is. So that's all I had to show you today. I want to talk about these lower thirds, how easy it is to find them. Don't forget typing in PNG when you're looking for these things, so you can find ones that are transparent in the background. Like these are all transparent. They look really good. And then, you know, there you go. It doesn't take a ton of time to make these, especially when you start to learn how to break down the individual elements. You can just, you know, find one you like and recreate it in ScreenFlow. I am going to do something now, though, that is significantly trickier. How do you download them from YouTube? Check this out. Google, download from YouTube. First link, save from. Put a link in right here. Let's go to YouTube. Find the first video that pops up. Reservations required. I've been watching lots of food videos lately. Find that link. Close it. Insert your link here. Press go. It's going to take a second because that was kind of a long video. And then it's going to give you like a 720 MP4, 720. Looks like it has more here. You can do all these different formats, but MP4 720, download. Well, I just downloaded multiple, unfortunately. But there you go. That's how you download from YouTube. Just type in download from YouTube into Google. Save from .net seems to work pretty well for me. Okay, so we're going to do something now that is a little tricky, and I only realized that I was going to do this while I was talking to you earlier, so I might make a couple of mistakes here, but this is going to be real tricky. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a transparent lower third that I can export from ScreenFlow for use in future projects. So the reason why I wanted to do this one in particular is because I wanted to make this. And one thing that is hard to do in ScreenFlow, unfortunately, is this right here, this angled end of a rectangle. So what I'm going to do, and it's going to be weird, but I'm going to try and recreate this. So, oops, I didn't want to delete that. Let's pull this in and use it as kind of our bearing lines to make sure we know what we're talking about. So we'll put this up here at the top. So I want to make, I see 3 elements here, right? A square and 2 rectangles. Perfect. Let's make that. Annotations. First one. Square filled in. Boom. Just like that. Actually, if I hold shift, I get a perfect square, so that's what I'm going to do. Move it down right there. Perfect. Now I need 2 more that are long rectangles, so I'll make a new one, do the same thing, starting about and ending there, and then another one about here. And I'm not going to make these exactly perfect. You can spend extra time making sure they're all dialed in exactly how you want. Now we're going to go like this. But what I am going to do is just make sure this looks a little bit similar, right? Yeah. So what I can't do is make a angle right here. Like I can't come over and just bring this corner in. It's unfortunately a limitation of ScreenFlow. But if you get a little creative, that's not an issue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a rectangular annotation and finish that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a rotation on it. Is this going to work? I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to think if this is even going to work. I think it's going to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to use this rectangular animation or rectangular annotation, and I'm going to line it up perfectly with its edge onto the edge of the one below it. Just like that. After I've given it some rotation, maybe even a little bit more rotation, I think would be better. I think it looks good like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do Command C, Command V, so copy and paste, and I got another one, and I'm going to do the same thing on this one. More or less looks good, right? Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this individual piece to green. And I'm going to change the color of this to green. And then I'm going to change the background of the entire project to green. These aren't the same color. So what I need to do is make sure that I click on this, change the color, use this guy, and do the background. Why are they not coming out as the same color? That's frustrating. Oh, it's the same color on that monitor. Is it the same color for you guys? I see them differently. But I think it just depends on the monitor that you're using. But the key here now is to export this. Let's just see what happens if we do just a very, very basic, automatic, fastest as possibly can be, green screen, lower third. All right, let's see what happens now. I think I just put that on the desktop. Yeah, right there. Let's pull this in. Let's change my background. Actually, let's open up a new project here. File, new empty ScreenFlow project. Perfect. And I'm going to add a piece of media from my desktop. Lower third test, open. Pull it in here. Ah, yeah, that looks much better. Now, check this out. I just created a lower third that I can chroma key the background out of. And now I have this, and when I drop in a new piece of media behind it, it's like I just created my own transparent background. Now, there's another step that I'm going to take you on here, because at the end of the day, what I've done here, so I did a little tricky way of making angles in my stuff here. I can make them even more angled if I wanted to, you know, just by going like this. Now I have a massive angle going on. I think I'm going to do the same thing here. Make it even more so. Just like that. So what I can do now is, instead of just exporting normally, I'm going to come up and I'm going to export, and I'm going to go to my export settings, manual, and I'm going to choose lossless ProRes with alpha. And with alpha, that means that alpha channel. Actually, I think what I need to do first is Chroma Key out the background. Is that right? Gosh, now I'm confused. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. I know what I need to do. All right, so I exported. Sorry, everyone. Like I said, this is tricky. I'm working my brain here to make sure I do this right, and I think I've got it here. So I exported that video with a green background, no problem, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a video filter to this with Chroma Key it out. Now I'm going to set an in point here, because I just want to export this part right here. I'm going to File, Export Selected Range, Manual, Lossless ProRes with Alpha. And what that's going to do is it's going to export that transparency. So let's see what happens. All right, moment of truth. Let's not get rid of that. Let's open a new ScreenFlow document. Hopefully this worked, guys. Got my fingers crossed. Pull in my face down walk video, and hopefully what happens now, when I pull in that exported video I just created, I should have a transparent lower third. I did it. Yes. All right. So as you can see here, I was able to create a transparent lower third with angles on my annotations that I could then export out of ScreenFlow to then use in multiple projects. It comes in as a transparent lower third. What I could have done in that other program too, though, is I could have animated this whole process. I could have animated all of this, and then I have an animated lower third that I can use in all of my projects. All right, guys, let's check out questions. I know that was really confusing. Let me just go over it really quick how I did that. First of all, I created a green background, right? And I created two pieces of media to go on top that were also green, knowing that those were going to get keyed out, meaning I was going to be left with these nice angles in my lower third. This part, these two things to create the angles, is not necessary to create that animated lower third export. But the idea is you can spend time in a ScreenFlow project specifically creating some lower thirds, make the background green, export it, bring it back in as a video, Chroma Key it, and then export it as lossless with alpha ProRes, and you're going to get this beautiful animated lower third with a transparent background. Boom. I'm real happy I figured that out with minimal fuss. So let's double check the questions, because that is all I had for you guys today. Looks like nothing on the screen. I'm going to choose me. Looks like nothing on the ScreenFlow side of things, and nothing on the YouTube side. You guys have no comments today, so I think from there we're going to call it. So just a reminder, you can sign up for updates if you go to telestream.net/ScreenFlowLive. From there you can get an update to when we go live. Also, you can find us on Twitter @ScreenFlow, on Facebook at facebook.com/ScreenFlow, and on YouTube we are ScreenFlow Tube is the name of our channel on YouTube. So, bit of a long one today, guys. I know sometimes I ramble a lot, but I had a lot to say about this. I think it's pretty cool what you can do with ScreenFlow. So thanks everyone for coming. I will see you all in 2 weeks with another awesome topic about editing and recording and playing around with ScreenFlow. So see you later, everyone.